do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Hello everyone, my name is Ethan, this is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and let's get into it. So today is the first in, a couple of videos that we're going to be putting out over the next couple of weeks where I make some predictions about what the league is going to look like next year. I'm going to go over, win-loss predictions for every team and where I think every team is going to finish. But first, before we do all that, today is going to be my official predictions for every NBA award for next year. So that includes MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved Player, Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year. We're going to go over all 6 of those and who I think is going to win each of those awards and some of the potential runners-up for those awards. These are my official predictions for it. We're going to go with exactly what I think is going to happen. And we're just going to go through, all 6 of those things and let you know why I think the way that I do and what we could potentially see the league looking like this year. Some of these are easier to predict than others. So, if I'm wrong, that's how it goes, right? These are tough to predict. This is mostly just for fun, but let's get into it. All right, so we're going to kind of go in reverse order. I'm going to save the MVP for last, kind of go through in reverse like this. So we're going to start with the Coach of the Year award. The Coach of the Year is, it's pretty, not super tough to predict this one, just because the Coach of the Year generally goes to a coach of a really good team and maybe a team that kind of over exceeds expectations. So either just a team is really historically great, really, really good, or a team that, wasn't projected to do as well and ends up, overperforming whatever they were expected to do. So let's go through a couple of names here. You have Frank Vogel, Steve Nash, who are both going to be the coaches of really good teams, so they're always going to be in the conversation. Rick Carlisle for the Mavericks because they're going to be good. I have Doc Rivers and Ty Lue because both of those guys have taken over teams that were very underwhelming last year, and so if both of those teams look better, the Clippers and the Sixers, if both of those teams look a little bit better this year with a different coach, they could potentially, take some of the credit for that with, a team being better than they were after a disappointing last season. So Doc Rivers and Ty Lue are both on my watch list for this. Steve Kerr and Nick Nurse as well, and Monty Williams, who are all kind of coaching teams that might not be projected to do super well, but Nick Nurse is always in the conversation here. He's just an amazing coach. Steve Kerr, if the Warriors are better than people think, he could be up there. Monty Williams for the Suns, and Erik Spoelstra I also have on this list for the Miami Heat, just because they were in the finals last year. He should have been a candidate for it last season, and so I think they'll give him a little bit of a makeup this year, putting him up there. So who do I have winning the award? And who are my finalists? Well, I have Nick Nurse and Erik Spoelstra being finalists for the award, but I'm actually going to give it to Monty Williams of the Phoenix Suns, simply because I feel like he was really underappreciated last year with the way that team performed in the bubble, going in 8-0 run. He's getting a lot more recognition as one of the better coaches in the league after that performance, and I think the Suns are going to be better than a lot of people might think this year with Chris Paul in there. We just saw, last year, Chris Paul's coach Billy Donovan was a finalist for the award, and so I think that Monty Williams for the Suns, I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take, but, just looking up and down the list, I think that one kind of makes the most sense because I do feel like the Suns are going to be pretty good and they might overperform expectations as well as being a threat in the playoffs. So I'm going to take Monty Williams as my Coach of the Year. Okay, Most Improved Player. This might be the hardest one to predict out of all of them, but I think there is a pretty clear favorite here. So let's go over a couple options. I don't have too many here. Let's go with RJ Barrett for the Knicks. If he, shows a little bit more of his potential. Dante DiVincenzo for the Bucks. I think he'll have a bigger role this season with the reshuffling of that roster. Collin Sexton on the Cavaliers. Coby White on the Chicago Bulls. Both teams won't be that good, but White has a new coach now, and I think he could take a leap in his second year. Collin Sexton was pretty good last season, but didn't get a lot of recognition for that. And so if the Cavaliers are any good, he might get a little bit more buzz. Tyler Herro, who we saw him make a big leap in the bubble. If he continues that, that progression and makes that sustainable throughout this regular season, I could see him getting some consideration. But I think the easiest pick right here is probably Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that's who I'm going to take to win the award. He is going to have a huge, a much enhanced offensive role in his third year with OKC. Now, obviously they lost Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder, trading them both away, and so he is going to be the clear focal point of the offense. He's the best player on the team for next year, and so just because of that increased responsibility, even though the Thunder won't be very good, he's probably going to put up a lot of numbers, and that's why I'll take Shai to win Most Improved Player. Sixth man of the year is also pretty hard to predict most of the time, but I've got a list of a couple of candidates here. This one required a little bit of thinking outside of the box here, but this is what we're going to go with. So Montrezl Harrell, who we don't know if he's going to start with the Lakers. I'm not sure if he's going to, remain in that six-man role or if he'll start over Marc Gasol or whatever. But if he comes off the bench, he'll be a candidate for it. Lou Williams is always a candidate every year, assuming he remains with the Clippers. And even if they trade him somewhere else, then maybe, he'll still be a candidate wherever he goes. Tyler Herro, I just mentioned him in Most Improved Player conversation, but I believe he's still going to be coming off the bench for the Heat next year. He might earn a starting spot as the year goes along. But if Herro comes off the bench, he'll be a candidate for it. And then for the Pelicans, JJ Redick, Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe. Two of the three of them are going to start, and the one that doesn't, I think, will be a candidate for sixth man, just because, Redick, we know that he can heat up off the bench. And then Bledsoe and Lonzo, I'm not sure which is going to start at the point guard. Maybe they start both of them and bring Redick off the bench, of course. But whichever one of those guys comes off the bench, those are three pretty solid guards. And so I would anticipate, whoever that other guy is going to get pretty significant minutes off the bench for Stan Van Gundy. So that guy will be in the conversation. Jordan Clarkson for the Jazz, who had a pretty solid year last season. He's gotten paid now, and he's going to be, a core part of the Jazz moving forward. He's a guy who can score in bunches. But the guy that I'm going to take to win the award here is going to be Spencer Dinwiddie for the New York Knicks. Looks like he's going to be coming off the bench behind Kyrie Irving, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, some of those other guards in their rotation. Dinwiddie will be sixth man for them. This is a team that's going to be looking to contend. Usually the sixth man of the year comes from a contending team. And so I think Dinwiddie will be able to put up numbers, assuming that he's not in some crazy James Harden trade. But for right now, I'll take Spencer Dinwiddie to win the Sixth Man of the Year award. Pretty good defensively, good offensive scoring load, and he'll be able to, he'll play starter level minutes, being that backup. He'll probably close games, in some matchups, depending, whatever. But he'll play just as many minutes as the starters, and I think he'll, have a pretty good opportunity to really win this award here on a good Brooklyn Nets team. So I'll take Spencer Dinwiddie to win Sixth Man of the Year. Okay, Rookie of the Year. This one, I've narrowed this list down to 5 candidates, and I will just go through these very quickly. I have the top 3 picks: LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman. All 3 of them, just by virtue of really being a top 3 pick, I think you're kind of automatically one of the, on the short list of candidates for the Rookie of the Year award. And then I also have Killian Hayes for the Pistons and Obi Toppin for the Knicks. Both of those guys are in similar scenarios where they're going to teams that don't have too much else on this roster. Hayes will get a lot of opportunity early to be able to handle the ball and score. Obi Toppin will also, go to a Knicks team that doesn't really have that much else on it, so he'll have a lot of opportunity there, as well as Obi, being, 22, 23. He's one of the older players in the draft, so he might be the most NBA-ready prospect out of anyone. He scored a lot in college, so if he can put up some big numbers on the Knicks, I could see him getting his way into this award. And then for the other guys, Wiseman, I think the only issue with him is that his team is going to be the best out of all 5 of those. The Warriors, are a playoff team, and these other 4 teams probably are not, and so he just probably won't have as much opportunity, obviously, next to Steph Curry and Draymond Green, Kelly Oubre, all the rest of the guys on that roster. So Wiseman probably won't have the opportunity to put up huge numbers like some of these other guys will. Anthony Edwards, I think the guard rotation in Minnesota might be a little too crowded for him to really get those stats up, just playing next to D'Angelo Russell, Ricky Rubio, Adebayo, Malik Beasley, Josh Okogie. He might have a little bit of a harder time finding minutes than as some of these other guys, so I won't take him. I'm going to pick LaMelo Ball to win the Rookie of the Year award. I think that he has the right mix of opportunity as well as talent. He's going to be a better player right away than Killian Hayes and Obi Toppin most likely. Even though the Hornets, now signing Gordon Hayward, he probably won't have as much of a chance as we kind of expected him to when they drafted him, but still, he'll be splitting minutes with Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, whatever, but I assume he's going to start right away, and he'll have a really good chance to put up some numbers on the Hornets there, even with some of the offseason additions that they had. So just with the combination of him being the 3rd overall pick, being as talented as he is, and he'll still have a good enough opportunity to be able to put up numbers on the Hornets there, so I'll take LaMelo Ball as my Rookie of the Year. All right, so Defensive Player of the Year. I have a little bit of a longer list of candidates for this one. Let's just go through these really quickly. I have Kawhi Leonard and Joel Embiid, who I kind of put in a lower category just because I don't know how many games they're going to play. Embiid, has had some injury issues in the past that's kind of held him out of award conversations. But if he can play a full season, I think he'll be up there. Kawhi Leonard, who, does the load management thing. If he plays the full season, obviously he's a candidate, one of the best defenders in the league, but, he doesn't usually play the full year, so I'll hold Kawhi out of real contention for this. Ben Simmons, I think, will be up there, even though he, is a guard. Usually this award goes to bigs, but I think Simmons is good enough on the perimeter, and he, is just so big and strong that the guys that he's guarding, he kind of overwhelms them sometimes. So I think he'll be up there as well. Giannis won it last year. I think there's a little bit of voter fatigue with Giannis, which I'll get to when I come to, his MVP candidacy as well. But people kind of want to see him win and prove that he can really take a team all the way. And him winning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year last year, and then his playoff run finishing the way that it did, kind of has turned a lot of voters off to Giannis, I think. So he's probably going to put up similar numbers to what he did last year, but I don't really think that they'll give him the award again. Similar thing with Rudy Gobert, who, had won it back-to-back seasons before Giannis did last year. Obviously, he's a great defender, but with his limitations in the playoffs and, the Jazz not being one of the best teams in the league, I don't necessarily think he's going to win it again. And that leaves you with 2 other players, which are Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. Both of their teams are going to be very good. Both of these guys are obviously great defenders. Bam is probably a little bit younger, maybe a little bit, questions about his availability and stuff like that. And I just don't think he's as good of a defender as Anthony Davis, who I'm going to take to win the award. I think AD had a really strong case for it last year, and I think the voters will reward his championship run, the Lakers being really solid. I think he'll put up these numbers again, assuming that he can stay healthy. He'll continue to be one of the best defenders in the league, and I think he should be the early favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. If he had won it last season, I don't know if I would consider, put him here to repeat, but because he didn't win it, and then obviously the Lakers being as good as they were, I think he'll get some reward for that. So I'm taking Anthony Davis as my Defensive Player of the Year. All right, and now for the big question: MVP. Who is going to win the NBA MVP? This might be one of the hardest MVP races to predict in recent years, just because it feels really, really wide open. And that is because of the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, has won it the past 2 seasons. And it's really, really hard to go MVP 3 times in a row. And, even without how hard that is, Giannis doesn't, like I mentioned before, with kind of the voter fatigue with him winning Defensive Player of the Year last year, and then the past 2 MVP awards, and then the Bucks, underwhelming in the postseason. Giannis kind of underwhelming there. And he is still so young that it doesn't feel like this is his last chance. So it's kind of like people are like, well, he'll have a chance to win more in the future. I'm really just kind of taking Giannis out of consideration entirely for the MVP. I don't think it's impossible that he can win it, but just looking at the trend of people who have won it in the past, and the way that the voters tend to vote, it doesn't feel like Giannis is going to be a real candidate for MVP this year, just because of the voter fatigue thing. So I'm going to take Giannis out, even though I do think he will put up similar numbers to last year and be just as good. And then you have the thing with James Harden, who has been, a finalist for the past couple of years, but we still don't know what team he's going to play for next year, whether it's going to be the Rockets, and even if he does stay with the Rockets, is he going to be really caring that much? Without the Mike D'Antoni system, the offense isn't as catered to him. Will he put up the same numbers that we've seen from him in the past couple of years if he plays for the Brooklyn Nets, with KD and Kyrie Irving? That probably takes touches away from him and removes him from that conversation as well. So James Harden is kind of up in the air. So while he's been a finalist for the past couple of seasons, I wouldn't pick him this year either. I have a couple of fringe candidates here. Trae Young, Damian Lillard, and Donovan Mitchell, all three of which, will be obviously put up huge numbers. Some of the best guards in the league. It's just I don't think their teams are quite good enough to really put them in the conversation for this award. Just because, generally, with the exception of Russell Westbrook a few years ago, the MVP winners are on top 3-4 seeds in their respective conference. So Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, they're going to be on the bubble here, but I wouldn't really pick them to win it. And then you have the LeBron-Anthony Davis thing where they kind of play on the same team, cancel each other out. We had this conundrum with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant a couple years ago. Both were putting up MVP-worthy numbers and MVP-worthy seasons, but because they both played on the Warriors, there was the whole narrative of how, well, they can't win it because they play on the same team and they cancel each other out, so that doesn't work. So LeBron and Anthony Davis, as much as the NBA loves LeBron James and they probably want him to win the award again, I think there will be, as long as either one of them is continuing to put up good numbers. The media and the league love the Lakers. They love LeBron. And so while I don't necessarily think that either of them will be, the most deserving candidate next year just because of the whole they play on the same team thing, neither of them is going to average 30 points, whatever. I think that they will kind of be up there, even though I don't think they deserve it really. But, you can put LeBron and AD in that category. And then you can talk about Luka Doncic, who obviously is, was amazing last year, was an MVP caliber player in just his second season. We'll have to see if he takes another jump in his third year. The only thing with Luka is that how good are the Mavericks going to be, right? Because like I mentioned, a team generally has to be in the top 3 or 4 seed in the conference. Are the Mavericks going to be that good? They haven't really made any huge improvements to last year's roster. So the only improvement that Dallas is going to make is, however much of a leap Luka can take in year 3. And after how good he was in year 2, I don't know necessarily how much better he can be just 1 year down the line. We'll have to see with that. I also have Steph Curry up here. If the Warriors surprise people and get, to a fourth or a third seed, people love Steph Curry. It's been a couple years since he's won one. And so if he can put up some huge numbers and carry the Warriors to a place where, people didn't think a lot of people might not think they would go, then I could definitely see Steph Curry being a finalist. So you might have thought that I have mentioned my pick for the MVP already. Out of all of this list of players, you might think that I would have already said the guy that I'm going to choose, but I have not. This might be my hottest take of the video. Actually, not mine. It probably is my hottest take. And I generally, listen, I don't just say hot take things just for the sake of clicks or views. I hate it when people do that. That's not how I roll. I'm not just going to say, some crazy player is going to win this just because I think it would be, controversial or whatever. And maybe this isn't as controversial as I'm saying, but when you're thinking about, a team that's going to be in the top of their conference, a guy who is clearly the best player on their team, they don't really have anybody who's going to be, on this MVP level, taking away touches from them, and a guy who, is still young and could probably make a jump and get even better. And a guy who the NBA doesn't have any voter fatigue for. He's a pretty new face, relatively young player. You put all those things together, think who might win the MVP next year. I'm going to go with Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics as my MVP pick. Because we saw just how good he was late in the year for the Celtics. He made that huge jump after the All-Star game. For the last couple months of the season, he was playing out of his mind. He's a guy who's really versatile, can defend, can shoot, can score on all 3 levels. Get to the free throw line mid-range. He's got a good three-pointer. He's the leader of that Celtics team. He's clearly, I think, the best player on the team. Kemba Walker might be out for a couple months, so he might have to carry them for a little while, carry the squad scoring load. He's going to put up big numbers. I think the Celtics might be a little underrated in the Eastern Conference. I think they're going to be a top 2-3 team in the conference. And I don't think it's controversial to say that the Celtics, are a real finals contender in the NBA right now. I think they have a real shot to be really good. So, I haven't seen a lot of people talking about Jayson Tatum for MVP, but this to me kind of feels right when you're putting everything together. You're looking at the other candidates, right? The most popular ones right now are Luka or LeBron, and I just kind of already said my cases as to why I don't necessarily think that those are the safest options or the most likely, just because looking at the way that voters have voted over the past couple of years, and then who might be available here, I think Jayson Tatum is going to be my MVP pick for next season. So that's all I got for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what your guys' predictions are for the NBA awards next season. What do you think of my predictions, and what do you guys have for me down there? Let me know, and I will see you guys in the next one.